Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you. I bring you greetings from the Office of Multicultural Student Programs here at UNC Asheville. In celebration of Black History Month, we are especially honored to have as our keynote speaker today, Ms. Nontombi Naomi Tutu. Ms. Tutu has spoken to audiences all over the country, and her topic today will be healing the wounds of racism. And she will also speak on the Truth and Reconciliation hearings in South Africa. We will begin our program today with a solo from Amanda Horton. Ms. Horton sings with the Asheville Lyric Opera and throughout the Southeast. She is a graduate of Asheville High School and holds music degrees from Furman University and Shenandoah Conservatory. We're in for a double treat today with Ms. Tutu and Ms. Horton. After Ms. Horton sings, the president of our Student Government Association, Tarek Glenn, and co-president of the Black Student Association, Brandon Farrar, will bring words of welcome as well. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the School of Francine Delaney, 8th grade, for coming today. Thank you. And now I present to you Miss Amanda Horton. Please welcome her. Amanda, simply beautiful. Before I begin the introduction, I'm a little ahead of myself. We will have the president of SGA, Tarek Glenn, come to you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. This is a great honor to be welcoming Ms. Naomi Tutu on behalf of the students of the University of North Carolina at Asheville. Earlier this week, when Ms. Wiggins asked me to introduce Ms. Tutu and then have lunch with her later this afternoon after this program, my response was absolutely. Quite often we read about great black leaders in the community nationally around the world, but we never get the opportunity to see them in person, to meet them, much less have lunch with them. So I am excited about this opportunity. I'm not one who goes bananas or demands autographs or does that when I'm in the presence of a well-known person or distinguished person, but this is a great opportunity to be welcoming on behalf of the students and then having lunch with her later today. Now, first and foremost, I would like to extend a warm welcome to you, Ms. Naomi Tutu, from the students. UNC Asheville is unique for various reasons. We're coined as the liberal arts university for North Carolina. I would argue we're the liberal arts university for the nation, but we're unique for many reasons. Not only because we focus on liberal arts, but because of our great programs, our great departments, and most importantly, we have a great, brilliant staff of faculty, staff, and more importantly, students. Now, as I welcome you, Ms. Tutu, there are a few challenges with any university that we face. Now that we're 2 months into Black History Month, I must admit that UNC Asheville doesn't necessarily have a strong Black history. We don't have a strong Black history, particularly in the number of students that we have in terms of numbers of Black students and students of color. Back almost 40 years ago in 1967, Francine Delaney was our first Black graduate. But since then, we're still struggling to enroll, to retain, and to graduate Black students. That's not to say in no way, shape, or form am I upset, angry, or mad, but disappointed, yes. I'm disappointed in addition to many other students here due to this fact. Personally, I'm disappointed because of the 45 to 50 classes I've had in my 4 years here, with the exception of 5 or 6, I've been the only Black student or student of color in that class. Now, it's easy to say that, it's unfair to me to be the only Black student in that class, but at the same time, for those white students who look around and see nothing but another white face, it's just as unfair to them as it is to me to be the only Black student. Also, in the 4 years I've been here, the 4 years I've been here, back in 2002, from my freshman year to junior year, last school year, we've increased our numbers of students overall. My freshman year, I think we had about 450. My sophomore year, 500 incoming freshmen. Last year, we had the 600, 650, the astronomical number of students. But with that, we've still maintained the same number of Black students that come into this school, roughly from 21 to 25 students. And even this year, our class numbers did drop, not as many as 600 last year, 650 last year, but we only have 18 incoming Black students for this school year. And to go from 24 to 25 to 18, that's not progress at all. That's not even going through the motions. We could at least keep the number that we have here at this university. And lastly, when I graduate in May, along with many other students, of the 24, 25 Black students that entered into my class in fall of 2002, only a handful of us will be graduating. 5 or 6 of us, I believe, Black students will be graduating in May, maybe a few more. But, I mean, that's due to many reasons. We do have transfers. We do have people that decided not to come back. But it's not, if you're not providing a conducive environment for learning, for students to feel comfortable in the classroom, in their social life, and anywhere else in this university, then we're not going to make progress in those areas. Now, I must say, this is not due to one person, it's not due to a group of people, and it's not entirely the university's fault or problem to deal with. As students, we've allowed our student organizations to lose much of their strength. The Black Student Association, the Asian Student Association, has lost a lot of its strength that it's had in the past. Now, it's easy to say that administrators, faculty, staff, they're the reason for that problem. But as students, student organizations are our responsibility. It's our responsibility to be sure that we maintain strong student organizations, that we all work together for one common purpose and one common goal. So it's easy to say that it's their fault, but as students, we hold the responsibility to be sure that we keep these student organizations on campus. And even more sadly, our Hispanic or Latino student organization and our Native American student organization, they no longer exist. Again, as students, that is our responsibility to be sure that we keep these student organizations on campus. It's not someone else's responsibility to be sure that the student concerns, the student organizations are there for next year's incoming class. So again, I welcome you, Ms. Tutu, to the University of North Carolina at Asheville. This is a fine institution. As I said, we're the public liberal arts institution for the state. And we have numerous motivated and dedicated people who take pride in this institution. So thank you for being our keynote speaker today, and I hope that, and I believe that all of us will be active listeners as you address us on the things that you've learned, your experiences, your education, and everything else, all the wisdom you have to share with us. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Brandon Farrar, the co-president of the Black Student Association.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the Black Student Association, the Student Diversity Alliance, InterVarsity Christian Fellowship, and myself, I would like to thank you all, as well as Ms. Tutu, for coming to listen to this very powerful message we're about to receive. As college students, I know that time is something that we often lack, but having you all here today lets me know that racism and diversity is something that is on you all's mind. As the next generation, we have to educate ourselves beyond the knowledge of those whom we succeed. Because according to Emma Goldman, the most violent element in society is ignorance. Again, I thank you all for coming today, and I hope that you all take something away.
Before I begin the introduction for Ms. Tutu, I'd like to acknowledge the passing of the late, graceful lady, Ms. Coretta Scott King, the slain civil rights icon, the widow of the slain civil rights icon, Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Please join me in a moment of silence as we remember her legacy. Thank you. There will be a future program commemorating her life. The belief that there is still much to do to eradicate the legacy of 3 centuries of racial oppression is what spurs Naomi Tutu to continue to speak out about the situations in South Africa. Tutu is the 3rd daughter of South African Archbishop Desmond Tutu and his wife, Namalizo, who founded and was the chairperson of the Tutu Foundation, which was, from 1985 until 1990, helped South African refugees in African countries. The foundation gave refugees scholarships so that they could learn skills that would make them self-supporting while in exile, as well as preparing them for the constructive roles in the free South Africa. Ms. Tutu was born in Krugersdorp, South Africa, and she holds a BA in Economics and French from Berea College in Berea, Kentucky, and an MA in International Economic Development from the Patterson School of Diplomacy and International Economic Development at the University of Kentucky. In addition, she was awarded an honorary doctorate by the Universal Orthodox College of Ogun State, Nigeria, in 1985. Upon completing her master's, Ms. Tutu served as a consulting associate for Equator Advisory Services Limited, a private consulting firm in sub-Saharan Africa. She also carried out consulting work in South Africa looking into educational and professional opportunities for Black women. Since then, Ms. Tutu has taught courses on development, gender, and education in Africa at the universities of Hartford and Connecticut and Brevard College in North Carolina. Ms. Tutu has also worked at the University of Cape Town, where she was a program coordinator at the African Gender Institute. She was in charge of programs on race and gender and the gender-based violence in education. From 1999 to 2002, Ms. Tutu has served as program coordinator for the Race Relations Institute at Fisk University. The institute is charged with focusing on the problem of racism in the global community. At the beginning of 2003, Ms. Tutu began working as Associate Director of the newly formed Office of International Programs at Tennessee State University in Nashville. She has received numerous awards and honors from different organizations such as the California State Legislature, the Kentucky State branches of the NAACP, the Boston City Council, Outstanding Youth Women of America, and Who's Who of Americans in America, and Dollars and Cents Magazine, just to name a few. And after our next selection by Miss Amanda Horton, the next voice that you will hear will be that of Miss Naomi Tutu. Thank you.
Whoa. Let the church say amen. Good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be here as part of your Black History Month celebrations. The topic for my presentation today is Truth and Reconciliation, Healing the Wounds of Racism. And I use as the basis of my presentation the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that took place in South Africa following the end of apartheid. And I'm sure that most of you have heard of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and of the work that it did in healing and moving South Africa forward into the path of a new non-racial democratic society. And nowadays, there are many history books that actually talk about the Truth Commission and the wonderful work it did. But I always have to start my presentations about the TRC with an addition to what you will find in the history books. Because when you read about the TRC, they will tell you about Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu and blah, 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 you know, those people who were supposedly had a very big role in the outcome and the planning of the TRC. But you won't find my name in the history book. And I want to correct that right now. Because without me, the TRC might never have happened. You know, my dad was named the chairperson of the TRC while he was still Archbishop of Cape Town. And so the initial meetings in preparation for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission took place at Bishop's Court in Cape Town, which was the official residence, which is still the official residence of the Archbishop. My mother has been a priest's wife for over 30 years, and so she knew what that meant, and very soon found very important family business that she had to do in Soweto, hundreds of miles from Cape Town. So I was left there hosting these meetings. So I made the tea, the cookies, cooked dinner, and if it had not been for my tea and cookies, my excellent dinners, that thing might not even have got off the ground, let me tell you. So next time you read about the TRC, say, Naomi. But the TRC, you know, we hear so much about the wonderful work of the TRC, and yet very few people have paid attention to how it came into being and how difficult it was to put in place a system that would deal both with justice and with healing. When apartheid came to an end, we had those people in South Africa who said, you know what, we should just give everybody blanket amnesty for whatever they did under apartheid and just turn over a fresh page, start a new leaf, or whatever. No, it's start a new page, turn over a fresh leaf, whatever, you know, but that we should just let bygones be bygones and move into the future, forget the past. And there were others who said, no, what happened under apartheid was so heinous, was so cruel, that what we need are Nuremberg-type trials where people are tried for human rights abuses and sentenced. And so, in fact, the TRC was a compromise between those two positions. So there was not a blanket amnesty. Rather, in order to qualify for amnesty, people had to tell the truth about what they had done. So there were only 3 requirements to receive amnesty. One was that you had to tell the truth. The second was that you had to show some kind of political motivation for your action. And the third was that it could not be some individual political motivation, that it had to be part of either the government or a political organization, the African National Congress or the Pan-Africanist Congress, whose orders or philosophy you were following in whatever action you had taken. The TRC itself had 3 parts. It had the Amnesty Committee, which listened to amnesty applications from people. The second was the Human Rights Committee, that heard the stories of those who were victims and survivors of human rights abuses. And then the Reparations Committee that was charged with coming up with a formula for paying reparations to those who were victims and survivors of human rights abuses. As I said, people simply had to tell the truth in order to get amnesty. And when I first heard this, I thought, you know, that is just so unfair. That people can talk about the most depraved actions that you can possibly imagine. And just the fact that they tell the truth means that they can walk out of the Amnesty Committee hearings as completely free people. Because people didn't receive just amnesty from criminal prosecution, they also received amnesty from any civil prosecution. So that meant that their victims had no recourse once those people had been given amnesty. And I didn't necessarily want people to have to go to jail, but I thought at least as a country, we have to ask people to show some remorse and maybe pay some kind of restitution, give back something to the country. You know, maybe build schools in rural areas or work in public works service projects, but to do something to show that they are aware that they have taken something from the country and now are going to give something back for the new South Africa. Because, I mean, you know, I thought it's a no-brainer. You tell the truth, you get off scot-free. You're caught lying, you might go to jail. So I thought, tell the truth. You know, say what you did and be able then to continue your life. Yet over and over, people lied. They lied about how they killed people. They lied about the torture. You know, they would be asked, did you kill such and such a political activist? And they would say, yes, we killed him. And they would be asked, how did you kill this person? They said, well, after we arrested him, we gave him a cup of drugged coffee, and when he was asleep, we shot him. Now, I mean, that's not a wonderful thing to admit to in and of itself. But then the bodies would be exhumed. And, you know, since I've started watching CSI, I thought people should have watched CSI before they started lying at that Amnesty Committee hearing. Because bodies speak. And over, when they exhumed these bodies, it was clear that these people had not simply been drugged and shot, that they had been tortured, that they had been beaten. And after listening to so many people who had everything going for them to tell the truth, and yet they chose to lie, I started asking myself, now why would that be? Why would you lie when everything seemed to be in favor of you telling the truth? I came to realize that there were a number of things going on. One was, first of all, the hearings were televised. Anybody could attend the hearings. Those who were victims or the families of those who had been killed could have representation at the hearings and could question the applicants. And so there was something, I'm sure, about being exposed in public for how inhumane you had become, for being exposed to the whole nation and in some cases to people all over the world, the kind of activities that you had carried on. And so maybe there was a level of hoping that people would not find out the real truth. But I think that even more than that was having to speak and face the truth themselves. Having to face the truth of who they had allowed themselves to become. And in fact, one of those who actually did tell the truth, but did not qualify for amnesty because of the level of depravity of the actions that he took, actually spoke about how through all this time he had basically split himself into two. That there was the man who was the father, the neighbor, the husband, the friend, the churchgoer, the man who hugged his children, who led prayers in church, the man who went fishing and on picnics with family and friends. And then there was the man who would, in the middle of the night, lead raids into homes, killing everybody in the house. There was the man who tortured and killed young people and then burnt their bodies on a fire on one side of the road while he and his men had a barbecue on the other. That in order to keep functioning, he had to separate those two people. That while he was the father and husband and friend, he had to pretend that he was not a torturer and a murderer. And while he was a torturer and a murderer, he had to forget that he was a father. And so being called to those hearings meant that those two people had to be integrated. That you had to face the reality of what you could do in defense of a political system. That they had to claim all the actions that they had taken. And many of them could not do so. And many of those who did found their other life falling apart, found themselves shunned by their family and friends, found themselves unable to deal with the truth. Now, I'm sure that there is not in the room anyone who is a torturer or a murderer. Though those of you who are parents, I know you have come close on occasion. I know I have. But I also know that for all of us, there are times when it is difficult to face the truth, some truth about ourselves. And in this particular time of Black History Month, when we look not only at the contributions and role that people of color have played in the building of this country, but also need to look honestly at how this country has treated those of color, we often want to shy away from the truth. We don't want to hear the stories of abuse, of murder. We don't want to pay too much attention or spend too much time talking about the impact of slavery and Jim Crow and the continuing effect that it has on all of us economically and socially. You know, when I taught at the University of Hartford, excuse me, I didn't mean to be spitting at you down here. When I taught at the University of Hartford, I taught a course about the experience and impact of Black people in the United States. And like a lot of teachers, I would start off the semester by asking students what they hope to learn in this particular course. You know, it's a trick that teachers have. to make you think that we're going to pay attention to what you want to learn from us. Most of those forms they don't end up in the trash. I'm joking. But I was shocked at the number of college students who were coming in there saying, I want to know more about slavery. And I'm thinking, you've gone through 12 years of education in this school and in this country, and you feel that you haven't been educated enough about slavery? What is going on? And now I have children in school, and I've looked at social science and history books, and in the good ones, slavery gets a page. In most of them, it's a paragraph. So, is it surprising that our young people have no idea of the major role that slavery played in establishing this country and establishing the racial hierarchy that continues to exist? That until and unless we are able to speak the truth about our history, we cannot learn from it. And as I have gone around this country talking, and I've been doing this for a very long time, one of the things that I have come to see is that all too often we approach history as something that is supposed to make us proud. That we want to tell the history of the great achievements. But what I learned in South Africa is that history is meant to teach us so that we can learn from our mistakes as well as our great achievements. And that if we try and separate out our history, if we try only to claim that which is good, then we can never be healed from that which is bad. Because I think one of the biggest impacts of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa was making us as South Africans claim all of our history. If we as South Africans are going to claim to have given the world Nelson Mandela, which we all do, walk around like, yeah, I'm from South Africa. Nelson Mandela, you heard of him? Yeah. That's me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, great humanitarian, great man, forgave everybody, moved forward. That's my country. Yeah, that was our president. But then we also have to, as South Africans, claim the Eugene de Koks, those who tortured, those who dehumanized, those who killed. Because just as much as President Mandela has brought us to the new South Africa, those experiences and those people who degraded and deprived the majority of South Africans of their rights for so long have also brought us to where we are today. And what does that say to us here in this country? It says that we can't pick and choose our history. We can't decide which part of history we are going to claim, which part of our story we are going to tell our children. My greatest problem with those who fly the Confederate flag is not that they fly the Confederate flag. It is that, when you ask them, then why are you flying the Confederate flag? They say it is a part of our history. Our ancestors fought bravely. They showed their dedication, etc., etc. And then you say, what about slavery? No, that's not. But that is what they were fighting for. So you can't claim their bravery and not claim their cause, even if it is to question that cause. You cannot separate out the truth. We cannot separate out our story. And the only way that we can heal is when we are willing to give voice to the truth that has brought us to where we are. And nobody ever said truth was a comfortable thing. We know that in our personal lives. But we do know that without listening and speaking the truth, we cannot move forward, whether it be in our personal lives, whether it be in our community, in our nation, and in our world. So, one of my challenges to you here today, particularly after listening to Tariq's presentation about the challenges that he sees here at UNCA, is that how about thinking of a Truth and Reconciliation Commission for this university? For this university in this community. To give people the opportunity and the right to speak about the experiences of race and racism. No, I know exactly what he was meaning about being the only black person in a class, and whenever there's something said about black culture or black intellectuals and everybody looks at you and you're like, I swear I don't know anything about that, okay? Maybe we can all research it together. But that we have an opportunity to learn from each other. We have an opportunity to speak the truth, particularly in a university community. That what universities are about is expanding knowledge. This morning, I spoke to a group of elementary school students, and I said to them, one of the things that I say to many groups is, if you want to learn about hearing and speaking the truth, you need to visit a kindergarten class every once in a while. And so I asked them, I said, so what happens, what have you seen? Have you ever been to a kindergarten class? What have you seen happening in kindergarten classes? And one of the kids said, oh, they scream and smack each other all the time. And I was like, oh, that's not the lesson I was trying to get across. No. But what I was trying to talk about was how they ask about difference. How they tell the truth about not knowing or not understanding, and how they are not afraid to tell the truth about their experience or about not understanding somebody else's experience. And that it is a lesson that we so quickly unlearn, that we are so quickly taught to stay away from the truth if it might be uncomfortable. How we are so quickly taught not to challenge people when we feel that their statement is racist or sexist or homophobic, that, we either we walk away from the conversation or pretend that we didn't hear. But that is no way for healing to take place. And how often we ourselves try to hide from ourselves our own stereotypes and prejudices, and how, we often say, well, I'm not racist, or I don't have a racist bone in my body, or I don't see color. If you hear somebody say that, you take them for an eye test, okay? Because how can they not see that when you look in a garden, you don't pretend that all the flowers are red so that the flowers will feel comfortable? That we notice the difference of the flowers and we enjoy it. But somehow we have told ourselves that with people, we have to pretend we don't notice difference. And that is somehow supposed to make people feel as though they fit in and are connected. When we know there's difference. And it is when we silence ourselves from asking about that difference, or when we silence ourselves from speaking about our experience as being those who people see as different. And I when I was in graduate school, I thought that I wanted to be a diplomat. And then I attended some meetings at the UN, and I realized there is no way I could ever be a diplomat, because they have to be polite to each other all the time. You might think the person is as dumb and as whatever, but you have to be polite. And I have a really hard time with being polite constantly. It's one of the crosses I have to bear. But I was taking part in a workshop on diversity in California one time, and it was a diverse group of people. And on the second day, we had lunch on our own. We could go to lunch with whoever in the group we wanted to go to. And so on the second day, just before we went to lunch, one of the women said, well, I noticed that yesterday a group of people all went to lunch together, and our group had no diversity, and I would like us to have more diversity in our lunch group. And she said this looking at me. And I was like, I am not your diversity, okay? If you want to have lunch with me and talk about my experience, that's fine. But I am not placed here to be your experience of diversity. But then later on, I thought about it. And I realized that each of us is placed here to be everybody else's experience of diversity. That none of us is the same as anybody else. But each of us have in us a core dream, hope of being seen and appreciated, of our truth being heard of our gifts being recognized. And if we are to be those communities that celebrate the diversity that is all of us, if we are to be communities who are about healing and justice, we have to have the courage to both speak our own truth and listen to the truth of others. So I will be waiting to hear that UNCA has taken a lead in a project of reconciliation on this campus and in the larger Asheville community. Truth, healing, reconciliation. We can and we must. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tutu, for that wonderful, wonderful speech. So uplifting and enlightening. We'd like to take this opportunity to entertain questions for those of you who have them. We only ask that you come to the podium. Please speak at the microphones. There are one in both aisles. There's one in both aisles. Please come to the microphone before you ask a question. Thank you.
Oh, he's got a notepad. Oh, dear.
Hi, I just wanted to first thank you so much for giving us this presentation. It's truly an honor to be in your presence. But I've got two questions. The first one is, do you have the recipe for your cookies that saved South Africa? Or I can give you my email if you need to send
Okay.
it.
Okay.
And then the second is, I was wondering if you have any recommendations for those of us who want to make this kind of work not only part of our daily lives, but more than that, like a career. Mm-hmm. A career in human rights, anything along those lines.
Okay. Well, I have to make a confession.
Uh-oh.
You know, in South Africa, we have Woolworths, which isn't like Woolworths here. It's not like Woolworths here. Our Woolworths is very nice, and they sell everything from suits to food. And they have the best ready-made cookies. So I made the coffee and tea from scratch.
Oh, okay.
I bought the cookies at Woolworths. Okay. I did cook the dinners, though. Okay. In terms of being a part, I mean, you know, the thing is that there are so many opportunities nowadays in almost any field that you go into of people who are looking at how being a doctor, being a lawyer, being a teacher can be something that moves forward the movement for human rights in this country and around the world. And I think that the first thing you have to do is make sure that you get into the field that you feel passionate about. Because human rights work is wonderfully empowering and enriching, but it is also work that you often feel like you are banging your head against a brick wall from the time you wake up until way after you've fallen asleep. And so you need to have something that you feel passionate about in the way that you bring up, the way that you structure your work around human rights, to be able to keep yourself going. I would also say that my belief is that for each of us, most often the work is local. Most often it is something that we see in our own community that we can make a difference in. That whether it be working with the homeless, giving voice to the homeless, not simply giving them a place to sleep, but giving them their voice in how they want their problems dealt with, is that it is very often the work that is locally based that we are called to.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tutu. I've heard that in South Africa today, the depth of violence against women is so painful. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if there's been any consideration of applying truth and reconciliation to that issue.
Okay. No, there hasn't been. There has not been a Truth and Reconciliation Commission around gender violence in South Africa, and what there has been a great movement led predominantly by women, but that is spreading throughout the community in terms of bringing to light what it is in our culture and history that has made gender-based violence acceptable, and in challenging those ideas and stereotypes that go across racial lines in South Africa. South Africa has always been a very patriarchal society, in both black and white communities, where men were considered the head of the household. A man's home is his castle. What happens in his house, that sense that women and children were men's property almost, and so that the process has been around challenging those ideas in our schools, in our churches, in our community groups, and also putting in place laws and processes that, for instance, there had never been a dedicated task force in the police around sexual violence. That, very often somebody would come in from being raped and would be made to sit out in the hallway waiting to be interviewed by whichever policeman. And so many people did not report rape because of the experience that they went through. And then the examination by district surgeons, who were very often older men so there was no protocol, for instance. So that is being put in place. And then also in dealing with justices, our judges, who have a sense that sexual violence or gender-based violence is not as big a crime as other types of violence. So having to revamp our whole judicial system. So there is, and it has been led from the grassroots very much. Thank you. No more questions? Thank you. Thank you.